Good afternoon, everybody. We're just going to give it a few seconds just for people to join the webinar, and then I'll do the formal introductions. Okay, we're going to give it about 30 seconds and then we'll start the formal proceedings. Okay, I think let's get started. Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Neil Piper. I'm the head of content for Messi Frankfurt, South Africa, and I'll be hosting the webinar today. As part of the broader content program for All Fashion Sourcing, which is the largest textile and fashion show in sub-Saharan Africa. It's a business-orientated marketplace for the textile and fashion industry, combining African creativity, design, manufacturing with international sourcing options. Today, we have partnered with Mauritius to bring you this very important webinar. The webinar will address the topic of consolidating ties to promote the fashion industry, how to strengthen strategic partnerships in trade investment between South Africa and Mauritius. And we've assembled a powerful panel who will be discussing and taking into account a variety and complexity of the issues, especially the disruption due to the sector due to COVID-19 and how the world has changed due to the pandemic. The panel will also discuss partnerships, collaboration, and the reinvention required to move the sector forward to ensure the sustainability of the international value chain, and specifically how to foster trade investment between South Africa and Mauritius. We've got 45 minutes. We're going to try and keep the conversation to that, but if we're having a really good conversation, we'll keep it going, and then we'll get to the Q&A. So please, can I ask you that you put your questions in the Q&A tab at the bottom of your screen. Unfortunately, we have got load shedding around South Africa at the moment, and two of our panelists are in load shedding, so they might not be able to turn their cameras on and they might disappear for a short while, but they will return if they can. So we do the best we can, and I think on that note, let me introduce the panel to you. And once I've introduced you, please give yourself a short introduction. Girish Bhaktawan Singh, he's the Director, Industry Sector at Mauritius. He is well-versed with the Mauritian manufacturing industry, having served in key positions from planning, production, marketing, and strategic planning in major renowned companies. He holds a degree in mechanical engineering and an MBA from Edinburgh Business School, and he is very active in pushing for more intra-trade in the region. Next up, we've got Narisha Jarraj, the Executive Director, Footwear and Leather Council. Through her leadership, SAFLEC has platformed in over 30 countries and has achieved recognition as the top export council awarded Best Export Promotional Council in Africa. Aside from the many trade-related educational academic accomplishments that Narisha holds, she attests that her many years of on-field experience, collaborative, team-orientated approach. She has an honors BTech in business management and an MBA in organizational behavior, and her openness to learn new learnings is the collective recipe that guides her. Last but not least, we've got Ronnie Mudley, the Chief Executive of Ronnie Mudley and Associates. she has been actively fostering trade links between South Africa and the Mauritian business in collaboration with the Economic Development Board Mauritius. This collaboration has been extended to Chennai in India, and she also represented the Durban Chamber of Commerce and Industry in her capacity as Vice President at the Commonwealth Business Forum in Malta. Welcome, everybody. Girish, short introduction from you, and then we'll head to Bonnie.
Girish Bhuttuvan Singh is a friend to South Africa, I must say, a friend to Africa. I am the Director of Industry at the Economic Development Board Mauritius, which is the most important agency in Mauritius, engaged in strategic planning and the promotion of partnership of trade and investment. I'm pleased to be invited at this webinar with the opportunity to contribute, to build a partnership, contribute in the development of the supply chain, contribute in the uplifting of the people of the region. Thank you.
Thank you, Girish. Thanks for being on today. As always, it's a pleasure to spend some time with you and host you. And Vani, a short introduction from yourself.
Thank you very much, Neil. A very good afternoon to you, ladies and gentlemen. I'm Ronnie Mudley, based in Durban in South Africa. I'm a trainer of entrepreneurs, managers, and leaders with an emphasis on
Okay, so I think we've lost Vani. I'm sure she'll be joining us soon. These gremlins, nothing like load shedding. Narisha, if you're there, just a short welcome and introduction.
Hello, everyone. My name is Narisha Jairaj. I currently act as the Executive Director of SAFLEC, the South African Footwear and Leather Export Council. Our mandate is predominantly to globalize South African footwear, and we work very closely with our counterparts across Africa to ensure that we can have a cross-value chain and a cross-trade of in and out trade between our countries. Thank you for inviting me here today. I really appreciate it. Thank you so much.
And then guess who's back? Vani, you're back, I see. You can finish that introduction.
Oh, great. Sorry, unstable Wi-Fi due to the load shedding again. So basically bringing a global experience base to entrepreneurs in South Africa with the intent of introducing them to foreign markets. And we found Mauritius to be a very friendly international market to introduce our entrepreneurs to. Thank you.
Bonnie, thank you so much. And we'll see if we can get through the webinar together with all our connectivity issues, but we'll make the most of it. So let's get into it. So with the COVID-19 pandemic, the industry has seen unparalleled disruption to its operations and supply chains. It's reshaped countries, societies, and communities. And if I can ask, will you share what this has meant for your business and community? And Girish, let me start with you.
Well, the pandemic, COVID-19, let's put it like this, is affecting the whole world. It's affecting people of all walks of life. And it obviously is affecting businesses. And obviously, little Mauritius also has not been spared. Okay. We have been finding ourselves in a situation where our export was affected, our FDI is affected, and our GDP has been affected by negative 14%. And for the first time since 1980, Mauritius did not register positive economic growth. But, faced with this challenge, and that's where the government stepped in with a number of support in order to sustain this industry, to keep on going. So we had the introduction of what you call the government wage assistance scheme. Okay, for a long period, government has disbursed nearly 9 billion rupees, okay, supporting the enterprises, and a number of incentives at scale in order, that entrepreneurs don't lose morale. They can keep on going with export of product, because this is very relevant for us. We are a small economy with a small island. We rely a lot on exports to outside markets, And we rely a lot also to bring our raw materials from outside markets. So this flow, there where the government has committed with a number of support and amongst what EDB also has been managing as schemes, even with regards to support export of products. And this has been very helpful. Okay, just give you one example of support in the speed to market scheme, refunding up to 60% in the basic care freight costs in order to reach out, for customers, because we were valuing in our model that customers is king and we have to stand in customers in this difficult period of time. So that period of COVID has brought some solidarity, some strength, and especially looking forward how to tackle the challenges.
Thank you, Girish. Did you say 9 million rupees to support the economy and the workforce?
9 billion.
Oh, billion.
9 billion as wage support scheme. And this was giving 50% of the salary, contributing to 50% of the salary to employees, okay, from different manufacturing companies.
Fantastic. Ronnie, what's COVID-19 done to your business and your community?
Right. So I work with various groups of entrepreneurs and have over the years, and we basically stay in constant contact despite the conclusion of specific interventions. We've basically experienced extensive job loss in South Africa. Some 1.5 to 1.8 million people have become unemployed, which has, of course, escalated our unemployment rate to quite an unbelievable rate at this particular point in time. Exports were limited during the COVID-19 pandemic. And of course, subsequently, imports were also limited because of the free flow of goods in and out of the country due to the pandemic and the control mechanisms that needed to be in place. Of course, our tourism industry took quite a beating, which impacted on the GDP in addition to the reduced spending power due to increased unemployment. So it has been a very difficult time for entrepreneurs. South Africa has put together various debt relief programs during the pandemic, which impacted positively on many businesses that did qualify. And I think we also experienced the unrest, which exacerbated the situation in South Africa and also created a lot of panic amongst entrepreneurs in terms of future sustainability within the country. So I'll just expand on that a little later when we talk to that particular point as well.
Super. Thank you, Ronnie. Yeah, and I think that's why we're here today. You talk about exports being limited during that period. As the world starts opening up again, it's important that we have these discussions like we're having today to get the flow going back and forth in and out of countries. On that note, Narisha, how's it impacted SAFLEC?
Oh, you want to speak about the uninvited cousin again, COVID. A very uninvited cousin. Well, let's just start from the point of lockdown. How did that impact on my manufacturers? So during lockdown, 3 major things happened. Firstly, cancellation of orders from current retailers, both national and international. And the companies going through lockdown meant they had to cease operations. So most of our companies were affected by the fact that they had canceled orders, they had already purchased raw materials, and they were sitting in a negative as far as cash flow is concerned, and having to come up with ideas on how to dispose of the products that they had already manufactured and that were now canceled by retail. However, the industry was very versatile, and a lot of factories converted from manufacturing clothing and textiles, as well as footwear, to manufacturing PPE. We did that, and we diversified to ensure that the manufacturers were still in operation and that people were still earning some sort of an income. Then we look at the government perspective. Government stepped in very strongly. They had implemented a wage subsistence via the UIF, the TERS program that helped to ease that financial burden that our manufacturers were feeling. We also instituted, from a government perspective, something called a working capital incentive. Now, with the cash flows being restrained because of cancelled orders, the lack of income, a lot of our factories were put into a position where cash flow was really restricted, and any new orders that did come in, when they eventually opened, rendered them incapacitated in a way as far as working capital was concerned. So this working capital grant was instituted to help them with that working capital to produce those orders and to deliver. We also had something called the Rapid Recovery Fund, an incentive that was implemented by government. So our government stepped in very strongly to assist the manufacturers. They've also instituted a new program called the CTFLGP. So let me just tell you what that acronym means. It's Clothing, Textiles, Footwear and Leather Goods Program. And that has a whole lot of incentive. It's actually got 7 incentives within that program that assists the companies with things like working capital, machinery funding, people, place and marketing funding, and also another sort of working capital grant that works like sort of a revolving credit of about 2 million per company if they comply. Then we go on through the third element of how COVID has affected us and the whole world. We sell to retail. Those are our customers. And retail changed drastically. Buyers changed buying habits because consumers changed buying habits. Now, consumers changed buying habits because they were sitting at home. They didn't need the high heel shoes and the fancy suits while they were sitting at home. And they got used to a new sort of behavior, which was more relaxed. And their behavior changed to more a comfort buy. A comfort buy. Comfortable shoes, comfortable clothes. So that in turn changed the buyers' buying behavior because they now need to ensure that they're fulfilling the need of the consumer. But the buyers were more reluctant with their buys. They were afraid with the different stages of COVID that was hitting us, stage 1, level 2, and all of this. So they didn't know when the next stage was going to hit. So their buys became very small and limited buys in opposed to their normal bulk buys. So they started doing small buys and all season buys because they didn't want to buy and be stocked with goods in their warehouse, which they couldn't turn around to cash. And that in turn impacted on the manufacturer because now the manufacturer has to put 20 designs in front of a buyer for a purchase that would be of a smaller quantity, which meant more development costs. So that is how COVID has affected us. This is where we're sitting right now. And COVID as a whole, worldwide, encouraged all countries around the world, as well as in Africa, to start looking within and implementing localization programs, which is brilliant because right now, I can tell you that South Africa's manufacturers are busy. They are really busy right now with their local orders and the localization program. So that's how COVID affected us. And I want to give you that positive side because we need to know that even though there are challenges, there is some sunlight at the end of that tunnel. And we need to look at it in that way, the sunlight at the end of the tunnel, and move forward. Thank you very much, Neil.
Thanks, Narisha. I love your positive vibe that you've got, but it's right. I think people are getting busier. But the other thing that's happened during COVID is that there has been so much change. And because of that, there's been a huge shift towards collaboration and partnerships. I think that's huge. And just listening to our speakers at our All Fashion event last week, that came across loud and clear. But can you guys share examples of the sense of sharing and how that's possibly going to drive and extend the trade between South Africa and Mauritius, and why this is so important to ensure post-pandemic recovery? Girish, I'm going to start with you.
Yeah, these are two important words for us when you're talking about partnership and collaboration. I love these words. I must say that from perspective of Mauritius, maybe because we are close to each other, we shared so many things together, we are defined as rainbow nations, Mauritians have a lot of affection for South Africa. So during that time of pandemic, with the disruption which happens, even South African operators suffering from the lack of raw material that they were facing, it was an opportunity for us to put forward something that we believe and that's what we like, the concept of made through Africa. Over the decades, South Africa has emerged to be the most important export market for textile apparel for Mauritius, okay? And Mauritius has always been willing to partner to conquer the markets in that regions, or even to put a name on the international market. For among ourselves, we have been telling for so long, we have the raw materials, we don't transform it enough. And I could see that. There's a popular saying here that the cocoa is in Africa, but the chocolate is Switzerland. The cotton is here in Africa, but the brands are in Europe and USA. But we have seen something happen. While we were trying to push for, developing such a supply chain, when we know that the purchasing power and the demand of garments, changed during the COVID period, but our factories, our mills that produce yarn and fabrics have been able to increase their supply to South Africa. And this partnership was due because those who were importing from Asia or from other countries realized more and more, next door you may be purchasing your yarn and fabric. So as far as apparel, which is the main products that Mauritius export to South Africa, is more or less, stabilized with a little decline. But we witness in yarn and fabric, an increase in the export coming, from going nearly at 22 million USD, and even in 2020 coming to now 36 million USD. And what's interesting in that concept, that Mauritius that I'm talking, for a country that don't grow cotton, but we grow cotton in Madagascar, we transform it in Mauritius and we are selling back to South Africa. And that's what we want. For a country that does not have a single ship, okay, we are manufacturing the necessary yarn, fabrics, for export in the region. And that's what we have been pushing. And even the stakeholders in South Africa could realize that from Mauritius, we can source, the raw materials that we need in order to sustain our production and to satisfy the end of the day, the client within or outside South Africa that they are exporting. So for me, one of the key lessons learned with regards to what partnership and collaboration could be is during that COVID period when I've seen an increase of interest of doing, business within the region, sourcing from Mauritius. Mauritius is not only a place where we are making garments and exporting. This has been one. Second, obviously, be it woven, be it knitted, because Mauritius has been putting, the emphasis, on smaller orders and delivery, because we knew that as a storage, you're paying money for that storage. The concept of going for that TPMS scheme of sending by air went to this perspective, sealing the right orders that will not stay in the shop and can be obviously sold easily. And then also there's this concept also. Mauritius came out, also as support during that period in collaboration and partnership, coming on a new premium visa. You can come to Mauritius, work from the beach of 1 year, no difficulty. You can come from Mauritius, also reach Mauritius, okay? Yes, for perspective of investment, certain face difficulties, be it the difficulties of their labor or their power cut or whatever. We don't have this sort of problem here. Yeah, and coming to Mauritius, not to say to close there and come to Mauritius. No, we don't speak like that. But to have, you know, a second business unit here, a second home here, somewhere where you're welcome in terms of difficulty, you know, as the correct neighbors, you know, works hand in hand in period of time. And we believe in that spirit of sharing, of caring, you know, to advance further. So this has been the rationale a bit of how we have been progressing during this period of time. And I could feel we did some leap ahead, you know, some advance in this sort of partnership.
Thank you, Gary. And geez, I would love to come and work on the beach. Would you have me, Gary?
Of course, of course. You just bring your laptop.
There we go. I'm going to go to you now, Narisha, just to talk about that collaboration and partnerships. In your talk last week at All Fashion Sourcing, you mentioned that quite a bit. Just take us through how that's driving your sector forward, that sense of collaboration.
Well, the collaborative efforts with stakeholders came on very strongly last year because we obviously had restrained resources. And in order for us to progress, it was necessary to collaborate with like-minded entities to ensure that promotion was continuing. And as early as April last year, SAFLEC pivoted and we were promoting the South African footwear, handbag, and leather goods industry virtually. So much so that we were acknowledged worldwide as the first entity to have pivoted towards virtual promotion in the world, an accolade we're very proud of. Now, when we speak about collaboration, Neil, we need to understand that a soccer match is not played by one player. All right, it's played by the team. And when we're looking at Africa and collaborative efforts between Africa, we need to stand together and we need to ensure between the different entities, be it Mauritius and South Africa, or between the rest of our SADC partners or the rest of our African partners, we need to establish certain benchmarks and certain issues that we need to work on collaboratively. And first of all, the first thing that we would point out is upskilling. We need to collectively upskill Africa in clothing and textiles, as well as footwear and leather, manufacturing. We need to share our resources. I love the fact that Girish says that materials available in Mauritius, cotton's available in Mauritius. I would encourage him to send me a list of suppliers that I could pump out to my manufacturers and that we can benefit from that relationship because, of course, my manufacturers would benefit from buying from a SADC partner where we can get things in duty-free. And of course, we would want to support our SADC partners in this whole trade negotiation and trade efforts. So that's the first thing I'd like to propose to Girish. And then the second thing we need to do, which is very important, is if we want to enhance Africa or made in Africa in a collaborative way, we need to do it in a way where we understand that it has to be two-way trade. All right? It cannot be a one-sided trade issue where we just want to sell to you or you just want to sell to us. So if we can come up with collaborative efforts where we can say, you're giving us the cotton, we're making finished products, can we promote it in Mauritius? Or I have this raw material, you could make the finished product and you could send it to us. So there's a whole lot of ways we can collaborate. And I thoroughly believe that we need to collectively get together. We need to establish exactly what we are going to be collaborating on. Do an MOA and just put the plan in action. So I am all for collaboration. Thank you, Neil.
Thanks, Narisha. Girish, that must be music to your ears. Collaborative efforts, working together, two-way trade, sitting around a table, putting an MOU together to drive the sector forward. It's amazing.
That's what Mauritius have been pushing since always. You know, we have believed in a concept. You know, one should understand when we are talking about this island history, where no one was there. There was no first inhabitant here. We all come from different regions, Africa, Asia, Europe, and we built a community here. And we have always believed in the concept of, progress based on collaboration and partnership. Okay, and the partnership that's being referred, like we try to establish, like growing cotton in Madagascar, transforming in Mauritius, and reach out to the African market, and came direct in the concept that what we are pushing, made through Africa, making use of all these resources which is available in the region. But it's true also that intra-trade did not pick up really as compared to Europe, Northern America, or Asia. There are many reasons for that, but the prise of the conscience with the COVID, even from African leaders at different levels, okay, with regards to this sort of collaboration. And now with the Continental Free Trade Agreement coming official. So this is spirit of going ahead, building this sort of partnership in a country that's like-minded, like in Mauritius, in view to conquer other markets in the regions. So Mauritius positions itself as a strategic hub for textile and apparel. You may have other countries that have other strengths and could be central focal point in the region. No need to say how much Botswana having so much diamonds, all these form part in the world of fashion that we need, to manufacture just instead of just selling to outside. So there's a lot of partnership that need to be developed, and this has to be done in a continuous, consistent, and credible way. Our partnership with South Africa, once it's recommend it concerns textile apparel or the world of fashion, is not limited to the products that we are manufacturing here. The partnership could be to other products that probably in South Africa, they have more expertise. In Mauritius today, what we are talking, the type of partnership that we are we're looking for partnership for manufacturing of seamless garment, on sustainable garments. We are looking for partnership with regards, to the sustainable fabric that we want to now innovate and go further. So we are looking for technical textile development. And for that, we need to have definitely this sort of partners where we join hands together. And if at the end of the day, we can have, imagine, brand like 100% responsible from Africa, and how we can go and conquer now most important market in Europe or in USA. If we could now carry it out, this sort of partnership, then obviously we'll come up as a manufacturing base, and it's going as what we were in the past decade. So the vision has to be shared, and then the progress will follow.
Great, Girish. So shared vision, continuous and credible support throughout the countries. That's fantastic. Ronnie, do you want to come in here and share any thoughts on what we're talking about?
Thank you, Neil. I think it's been pretty much covered by Girish and Narisha in a very holistic way. And I just want to emphasize the whole issue of cost. And that is central to an effective and efficient business. And it is these kinds of collaborative relationships and networks that both Narisha and Girish have been talking about that can impact positively if natural resources can be accessed at a cheaper cost within Africa. And, I always like to refer to Mauritius as another province of South Africa. Sorry, Girish, you're only 3.5 hours away. So very, very close. And, and I think in terms of the export and import regulations that affect South Africa and Mauritius, it makes Mauritius a more attractive source for natural resources. And I think this feeds into more competitive pricing and, of course, increased profits ultimately. So this kind of collaborative relationship is so integral to effective business within the SADC regions, within Africa. And if you look at some of the technological advancements in Mauritius, it is really mind-blowing. I was taken to a plant in Mauritius where they produce denim out of plastic bottles, and 7 plastic water bottles basically contribute to the production of 1 pair of jeans. Now, that technology is not, in my understanding, available in South Africa, for example. Narisha, you would probably know better than I do. I also had another kind of conversation this morning with one of my entrepreneurs who did a site visit to Mauritius. And he said to me, he's in the bags and leather industry, and he said to me, the technology used in Mauritius is far superior to what he has access to here. And he's considering taking his staff across to Mauritius for training on the use of some of the technology once he acquires them. So I think, these are some of the collaborative areas that we could focus on going forward, in addition to natural resources. And I think also when you look at it in terms and the context of capacity, if you're trading with a European country, they're not going to order 1 or 2 containers. They're going to be ordering 20 containers and 30 containers of goods, because there is collaborative relationships between countries in Europe, for example. And let's look at the capacity in terms of being able to deliver within specific timeframes on that. And why can't we be collaborating with our neighbors in terms of effectively producing and delivering on this with an African brand?
Thank you, Bonnie. I love your province of South Africa, an attractive province in South Africa, delivering sustainable fashion. We're going to talk about sustainability now, but it's such an important point, and the technology that can drive sustainability forward. And it seems, Girish, that you guys are on the right track, doing some really good things on the ground in Mauritius. And just touching on that, often Mauritius is touted as an African economic success story because of its strength and its steady growth and stability. Can you please elaborate as to why Mauritius remains such an attractive sourcing destination?
Well, just to bounce back also on what has explained by Vani, I have to make it to stress on that point. Mauritius is a small island development states, and that's the reason we are attached and bring policies with regards to the protection at the end of the day of the planet Earth. And the notion of sustainability being implemented at different levels. Maybe we would have wished to go faster, but we believe in that. Now, coming to why Mauritius, as the question you put forward, perceived as an attractive destination or economic successful story, like you put it. In fact, the World Bank talked about that, in the 1980s, Mauritius miracle. Okay, but what's important is the ecosystem that have been built with regards to to what Mauritius built itself. It's an whole ecosystem. It's an ecosystem about political stability, rule of law. It's an ecosystem built with a progressive economy, like free movement of capital. It's based on, an ecosystem built like a low tax rate, an ecosystem built like, giving the necessary, incentive in order that investors would be interested, to come to Mauritius. Coming to this sort of support, and all this, when it add together, has enabled, the industry to sustain, and the textile apparel, has passed the test of time over the last 50 years. And that system, that model, that initially in the 1970s, it's amazing. The first company that started in 1970 is still here. It's today the vertically integrated company, bringing a number of innovations, trying to develop, zero carbon footprint t-shirts. They started in 1970. They were just manufacturing, gloves. So that ecosystem enabled one to progress. And Mauritius, private sector and the government have always been working together to design what's need to be made attractive in order to keep the industry going. Because we knew since day one, we don't have raw materials, we don't have big market, so we lay our emphasis on transformation. So it's no coincidence that UNTAD last year ranked Mauritius first in transformation in the African region. So that ecosystem built on that. And obviously, we have moved from initially there was the labor was cheaper. Then we go to more vertically integrated enterprise with a lot of embellishment design being done by the enterprises. And now, just like Vani was telling, we are putting a lot of efforts with regards, to technology in order to develop products that are more sustainable, making usage of clean energy, and all this got aligned with the policy of the government, which put it clear. By 2030, we have to stop using coal. We have to use more solar energy, wind energy. So that all that add together make such a system attractive, because we respond not only to the XY generation need, we respond to the new millennium, we respond to the alpha and beta generation. We take this well into consideration where we want to move forward. Because at the end of the day, is the recipient of our services and our product should be happy with what we are doing, and the question of this loyalty being strengthened between both from the demand side and the supply side. This is the way we look at it. This is the type of vision we try to implement in order to move forward.
Thanks, Girish. I love the World Bank's statement, the Mauritius miracle. That's absolutely brilliant. So you spoke about, you got to renewables there a little bit, but what other strategies are you guys employing to ensure the stability of the Mauritian export market into Africa?
Yes, the current strategy, one should know that the main market of export for textile and apparel is Europe, South Africa, and USA. Okay, South Africa has come up as a single country where we have a majority of export, but Europe is also an important partner, being England, France, Italy, or what you call Germany, Spain, and of course, USA. So the strategy we are adopting when it comes to the different countries. So first, we are looking to diversify in the region. We have been exporting much in South Africa, and that's why the reason we look for partnership. We want to go deeper. We want to penetrate further, the SACU region. And that's the type of partnership we wish to be able to do with South African stakeholders and the Eastern African region. And now even this is more relevant with ACFTA, this one. Second, there has been a lot of investment being done in the product development, coming out, trying to develop more and more sustainable apparel products. Just to tell you, at the Economic Development Board, we rope the services of Carla International, which is a leading trend forecaster, and to get them to develop collection for a number of enterprises, sustainable apparel products that will be showcasing at international forum. So we are very, very consistent about developing sustainable product and get it, on the top of our mind of our operators, because this is a gradual movement from what we were doing. We are obviously looking to go more on, not only cotton shoe business, seamless business, seamless product. And we already have a major company, like Decathlon, major company, already positioning in Mauritius, using Mauritius as a distribution base for the Middle East and the Eastern African region. And lastly, what we did in order to go closer to the clients, this is the last incentive of what we did for the region, because we believe in developing that supply chain for the region, the regional inclusive supply chain. Lastly, what we did, we came out with a regional warehouse. We are giving some financial support to companies who will park their products in warehouse in Tanzania, for example, so that from there, the connection can be easier. And we do provide them some refund from the government with regards, to the basic warehouse costs that they will be paying. All this to tell them, don't see only towards Europe, don't see only towards northern direction, see about the regional direction also. Despite we know the difficulties of logistics, despite we know that our product was made to adapt to European or US market, despite we know that the distribution channel have to be developed, but we are listening to these customers, what they are looking for. Because at the end of the day, if we can manage to have more intra-trade in the region, it will be beneficial to all. If we can manage to make use more of our raw materials of the region, convert and make product, it will be beneficial to all. And if at the end of the day, we can have brands from our region that succeed more on the international market, it will be again a pride for all of us. So that's the way we are looking at it, that's the way we want to forcefully push forward, and that's the way we want to succeed, not alone, in partnership, not in one country, with many countries, because it's a time where the world's speaking about more regional cooperation, and it's already long time we spoke about a global world where barriers have already fallen down. So I think the famous words, of Imagine of the Beatles is coming slowly a reality. Thank you.
Thanks, Girish. I think, like you say, the world's getting smaller, collaboration, but I love the fact that you're talking about product development that's been aided by trend forecasters assisting you to ensure that you get the product right. So you're listening to what the world needs and you're trying to adapt your product accordingly, which is amazing. So just talking about trend forecasters and renowned brands, I think everybody, they're supporting efforts and driving the textile value chain to encourage commitment to advance sustainable practices and the supply of quality apparel, footwear, and home textile products. What are your thoughts about this drive towards a sustainable fashion? And let me start with you, Narisha. I'll head to you.
Thank you so much, Neil. So before I answer that question, I just want to point out that from a technology point of view, I'm very impressed with what Mauritius has done so far, that Ronnie and Girish has told us about on this discussion. But I want to point out as well that in a similar way, South Africa's footwear and other industry have also adopted some of the latest technology within its factories. From a sustainable point of view, we have a number of factories that are not just manufacturing sustainable product. So we've gone in via the CSIR, and we have now assisted factories to change their entire process to sustainable. So let's talk about how we've done that. So we've assisted them to use the RRR method, which is reuse, recycle, and reduce. All right, and that is in relation to waste material within their factories. The second thing we've done is we've encouraged them to use more greener energy, sustainable energy. We've got a number of factories that have now put up JoJo tanks, and they collect rainwater. This water is moved through the sanitation system within their factories, and they're able to use this water through purification systems in various ways. We've also got factories that want to change the entire carbon footprint, basically, in South Africa. And a number of them are already SADC approved. We're currently moving on to getting global recognition via B Corp for the international certification of many of our factories and their products under the sustainable banner. And that is something we're very proud of. We should have at least 2 to 3 factories with that certification before the end of this year itself. A lot of our factories are experimenting with Pintax, which is pineapple extract and products, materials made from oranges, materials made from hemp. And we're very proud of this. In fact, a lot of our brands have now reached the international market, manufacturing shoes made of cork, and you would have seen that displayed, Neil, at the trade show that you recently had in Cape Town last week, which was extremely successful, if I might say so myself. But you would see the amount or the length that some of our manufacturers are going through to ensure sustainable and environmentally more greener product. And they're not only looking at the product itself, they're looking at the entire processes within their factories to make sure that there is limited waste that moves through to the dump site. They're also concentrating on more biodegradable products. And that is a focus point of a lot of them. They're doing this because they acknowledge the fact that the global consumer's bias change has become more conscious. He's prepared to pay a little bit more if he knows that the product falls under the sustainable banner. And more so, we're very proud of the fact in South Africa that we have what you call fair trade, a fair trade system. So we have bargaining councils that ensure that there's fair labor practices, that is a fair wage that is being paid to people, that people are not being overworked, that we are not employing children, underaged people. And that is another thing that we are proud to have in South Africa, a bargaining council, a body that regulates that. So we don't only boast sustainable product, we boast social responsibility through ethical international labor organization rules and regulations. So there's a lot. I love the fact that Mauritius told us so much. There's a lot of things we can learn from each other. And I really invite him to get onto a one-on-one conversation with me after this, and we can talk about what we can learn from each other. Thank you very much, Neil.
Thanks, Narisha. Vani, do you want to step in here if you've got anything to add?
Nothing more. I think that's been covered quite adequately. Thank you so much, Neil.
Vani, they're making your job easy today, huh? At All Fashion Sourcing last week, as part of our sustainability panel discussion, the one thing that I took out of it was talking to your supply chain, the value chain, and asking them questions, what they're doing from a sustainable question, from a sustainability point of view. And the one panelist also said, do the small things. Don't just focus on 25 things. Focus on the first step to being sustainable. And I think Narisha and Girish, I think that's what you guys have done. I think you've taken the first steps and now you're running along the road to that greener, sustainable future, which is amazing. Girish, on the back of those answers around sustainability, it does lead into the question of how Mauritius is leveraging Industry 4.0 to drive the sustainability objective, and in general, just to fuel the competitive nature and the productivity in the sector in Mauritius.
This is a very interesting question. That's why from Mauritius' perspective, we already work out with all stakeholders, and with the help of an expert from South Africa, Professor Barnes, we came out with an industrial policy and strategic plan for the next decade. And among the question of productivity is very relevant, among Industry 4.0 is very relevant when we know the developments of soft robotics, artificial intelligence, gaining more and more in the processes of manufacturing of government and other industry sector. So Mauritius, we can't say we have reached Industry 4.0, but what is the focus for us is, we started in 70s with the manufacturing of basic shirts, etc. Now we are moved more toward the manufacturing of embellished garments, design garments, etc. Now we are pushing more in the process of using technology to be able to manufacture the best products, more responsible products at the lowest price possible. In Mauritius, we do import labor to work in our factories from Bangladesh. So in the perspective to improve on the productivity, in the perspective, to be able, to manufacture more at lesser cost. And we know that advancement brought in different usage of soft robotics in garments manufacture or in the usage of technology, we are looking to automate more and more within the supply chain to be able, to reach out for a broader base of customers, because if we can manufacture at lower cost and of course more quantities, this is what is being gradually being encouraged, in different schemes that the government is also putting. We know very well competitivity on one side, productivity on another side, but the adoption of, a clean energy, all this is very important for us. So clean manufacturing process is very relevant. And that's why we are discussing already with a number of stakeholders in different UN forums about the development of a regional inclusive supply chain and what are the advancement we are bringing in our industry, so that Mauritius can work to be the way we look at it, to be able to manufacture more complex products, not easily emulated, to be a strategic leader in the region when it comes to textile and apparel, to manufacture products that care, you know, even technical textile or more other eco-friendly, sustainable apparel products that we are talking, and to live by the name, Mauritius, small island development state that want to contribute to protect planet Earth, coming forward with product like 100% responsible. This will align itself with vision, policies, and where we want to move forward. This is what we are engaging ourselves. Already we know from the fabric side of denim, you know, that's why we welcome all this of interest of companies willing, you know, to move forward and develop a sustainable fabric with minimum usage of water, with minimum usage of chemicals. You know, the way we look at it is well deep inside us in the way what we want to product. We want to differentiate ourselves in the type of production that we are doing. So that's not a production that's relying on hands. It's not a production of just manufacturing at low cost. We have never been in the low cost competition also, but we differentiate from the product that what we are doing. That's why there is a lot of emphasis from different operators on the product development, coming to the extent that company coming out with, just to tell you a couple of achievements, with garments that are zero carbon footprint t-shirts. That's what company are working out to come and move forward and present to the world what we are doing together with sustainable apparel collection. So we want to touch to that niche market with regards to this category of clients who are growing more and more concerned of where they want, what they purchase, because they care too about the planet. And on one point, with regards, you know, to what Nirusha was saying with regards to the type of commitment on sustainability that Mauritius does, I want to stress on that so that you know in the system the type of reasoning that prevails. Yes, company adopt GOTS, RAP, READ certification and all that. But in the system itself, we have a minimum wage salary in Mauritius, in the law, in the legislation. In the system itself, we do have a system where companies, all companies that are profitable, need to contribute a percentage of their profit for corporate social responsibility. So this is a type of drive, the type of mindset that is being encouraged from top to bottom in order that the development be inclusive, you know, and society, you know, as a whole be a winner. Thank you.
That's great, Girish. So using Industry 4.0 Mauritius to manufacture products that care. I love it. Just Africa as a brand and the drive towards made in Africa, that's obviously of primary importance for the broader textile industry. Narisha, just getting into export markets using that. How do you at SAFLEC work towards this and position yourself towards this goal?
Well, firstly, we need to look at the fact that the industry in South Africa is over 150 years old, and it's made up of a diversity of different products. So you've got the handmade that is made in the rural communities that call a real price, and that's really attractive to the international market, because the international market's looking for a touch of Africa in the product, but they're also looking for a story of empowerment through the product. They want to know that when they're purchasing something, they've empowered somebody. And if they know that the storyline behind that product is they've empowered people in a rural community or women in a rural community to earn a living, and if they know that that product is actually handmade and not machine sewed, that is one of the angles for promotion into the global market. The second element would go with our small and medium-sized businesses. Our small and medium-sized businesses make a range of different products, and they make these products with materials that are available only in South Africa, like Springbok, for example. Now, you talk about traceability and ethical sourcing of this material. We have full traceability of all of the materials that we use in our product. There's certifications that need to be in place, inspections and checks that need to be placed as far as the traceability of the raw materials that we use in this product. And we use that certification and the fact that we've got that traceability with these exotic products when we're promoting and positioning ourselves into the international market. And then the third level goes is, Ronnie spoke earlier on about capacity. How much does the international market buy? All right, so the international market would buy the level of capacity that we may not be able to fulfill, as much as India would be able to supply, or as much as China would be able to supply. So we as a country, as South Africa, cannot position ourselves as a direct competitor to these markets. However, we do position ourselves as a country that is able to do a smaller quantity order that would be a large run to us, but a small run to the international market. And this is how we've been positioning ourselves. We've also, in addition, positioned ourselves as a diverse manufacturing country who is innovative and can sit down with you in that designing product process and product development process. We have the leverage of the fact that we work very closely with Arcitoria in Italy, who's like the Oxford University or the Princeton University or the Yale University of the footwear and leather industry. So we work closely with them with product development to ensure that we're in line with the global trends, to position ourselves as such with the necessary trend knowledge and with what we are able to do. We do not promise what we cannot deliver. We build transparent, honest, trustworthy relationships that can build, business for future generations, and building that trust and relationships important with our buyers. Thank you so much, Neil.
Thanks, Narisha. Girish, over to you on that. How is Mauritius positioning themselves in this regard?
Yes, when we are talking about made through Africa, to give the perspective of Mauritius, for Mauritius, yes, we are looking very much into this sort of collaboration to be able, to manufacture, like I've explained initially. But and that's why we are looking for more partnership, even from the region, be it from Madagascar and from other countries. I gave you the examples of cotton. But I must say, that's why we are awaiting also certain more relevant information. We have one company that manufactures beachwear in Mauritius. And this is the only company probably in the region that manufactures beachwear. I don't think there are many companies manufacturing beachwear in the region of Africa. But yet, we wish to sow the type of fabric they need from an African region, but we are getting it, we are forced to buy it from Europe, from Italy. This is the sort of partnership. Can you imagine the beachwear that we are wearing? We can't get it, from the African regions. And to go beyond textile and apparel, to go beyond, when we talk about the concept of made through Africa, when you imagine the richness in terms of raw material that we are having, and we have been pushing for that. When we realize from Mauritius, we have just set up enterprise that are engaged in the refinery of gold to 99.9%, getting gold from the region, refine it, and then of course export or develop jewelries and export and branded jewelry that is totally in line with the fashion that we are developing for apparel. So there's a number of products under which we want to move forward. But Mauritius is not at all in the mass production. We have never considered, to be able to compete with big countries. On the contrary, these countries, they have minimum orders which go beyond us. We have always been carving and finding a niche market for us. And on that niche market that we dominate. And that niche market is a market of added value. That's where we want to position ourselves, on a particular niche market of added value, because we do very well our calculation and segmentation. It's not a question of manufacturing and selling. No, it's a question of knowing what your clients is looking for, and we manufacture for that. We let the market dictate us, and we consider the markets. It's quite amazing for Mauritius. We export to a number of countries. A series of products goes on to a number of countries. We don't focus all in one basket. We go, and that's why in our latest strategy, we did not hesitate to sign free trade agreement and preferential trade agreement with India and China. Can you imagine? There are garments being manufactured in Mauritius and being exported to China. Can you imagine we're doing that? Can you imagine now we are looking also to position ourselves in certain categories of products to move to even to export to India in terms of formal shoots, okay, for certain brands that we are willing to be able to penetrate the Indian market when it comes to shoot. This is the way we look at it. There's never a question of saying no, because we know that we didn't have any raw materials, we manufacture. We didn't say that a market would not have a place for us. A market needs to be quite segmented, and what we are looking for need to be identified, and we manufacture for this category of client. This is the way we push forward. And what we want when we identify that particular segment, what we do, we don't want to abandon. No retreat, no surrender. We want to differ, we want to dominate that niche market. This is how we look at it. And that's why, can you imagine that sort of partnership between the African region and Mauritius, and then, to go to Asia now? Can you imagine we reverse it? And why not, with this preferential access now to go to China, to go to India, where they are now developing a lot of brands. So this is the way we look at it. We see these opportunities, and then of course, we press the accelerator and we go to conquer. No retreat, no surrender. Little Mauritius is also daring.
That's great. That's great, Girish. We are running out of time, but we're going to ask a few more questions. So please just bear with us. The African Continental Free Trade Agreement is the largest global free trade areas by countries participating. How do you see this transforming the continent's economic prospects? Narisha, let me start with you, and then I'm going to go to you, Ronnie.
So when we're looking at the Africa Free Continental Agreement, we've got to be cognizant of the fact that within the southern region, we do have bigger retail. So they can be good trade because we've got somebody to sell to. But when we look at the other countries, we've got to also be cognizant of the fact that it's still largely informal. And trade is just not going to occur immediately, especially in the clothing and textiles and footwear and leather sector, purely because each of the African governments see these sectors as a labor generation, employment generation sector. All right, and they are all prioritizing these sectors and the growth of these sectors within their countries. So how do we work with them? There's various ways. One is the way that Girish initially spoke about earlier on in the seminar, where the idea of going and opening up warehouses in some of these African countries to be able to supply the informal market within those regions is very good, because by doing that, you would be slowly working with the informal market, which will eventually turn into a formal market that we can supply to. We've also got to be cognizant of the competitors within this market of Africa. So it's not just us that have looked at the Africa Free Trade Agreement as African countries and said, wow, this is just going to be so perfect for all of us. We're going to be doing intertrade that's going to benefit the whole of Africa. The other countries have they're also looking at Africa. They know about the Africa Free Trade Agreement. Our competitors are, and they're also embedding themselves within Africa itself because they know of this economic growth that's going to happen. They see it as an advantage. So we need to be cognizant of all of these things when we speak about how wonderfully we're going to embark on going into Africa and increasing trade. It's not just going to be wow, this trade agreement now has been signed, and we're all just going to trade with each other, and we're going to increase our sales and exports, and there's going to be two-way trade. We've got to look at the fact that there are these challenges. And then we've got to look at the challenges and say, what is our solutions? Garisha's idea of the warehouses, that's a beautiful solution. Helping to upskill them while we are selling and intertrading is another solution. Encouraging our retail to open up more into the rest of Africa so that we're able to push product through retail into Africa is another solution. And that is a conversation on its own. The way we're going to work with Africa, the challenges that we have, the opportunities that we have. The first point of us starting with it is to see what raw materials are available between the countries and how we can access this from each other. And from that starting point, we can then go forward and see how we're going to enhance trade with the finished product. And the informal market and the competitors that we are going to meet along the way, and you guys know exactly who that is. I'm not going to mention it on this session for ethical purposes. You know who those competitors are. You know they've opened up huge, massive parks in the east of Africa already. We know it's coming. How are we going to solve that? And that we can do collectively when we collaborate together. Thank you, Neil. I hope that answer sufficed.
Thanks, Narisha. Ronnie, I'm going to head to you now. I haven't forgotten about you. Have you got anything to add?
Yes, I think, when you talk about the African Continental Free Trade Agreement, Neil, we're basically talking about creating a global village in Africa. And foremost in my mind is always the concept of the fourth industrial revolution. And how close are we in terms of our own development, which brings us to actually cut across the themes that we've already addressed today on collaboration and partnerships, on the textile value chain, on made through or in Africa. And the question I would like to pose for us to kind of consider at some stage and really make an effort to bring some level of collaboration within Africa around is the whole development of technology. We all have engineers, but how many innovations have our engineers come up with in South Africa, in Mauritius, in Africa? And why is it that we're all looking at the fourth industrial revolution in isolation of each other? And herein lies a major, major opportunity, which basically brings us again to the global village that we're not quite exploiting as the African nation. And I think, that for me is quite a critical point. The African Continental Free Trade Agreement basically facilitates fluidity of doing business in Africa. And I think not enough effort is put into this kind or exploiting all aspects or principles of the trade agreement. Every entrepreneur is trying in their own little spaces to try and enter into the African continent. And if there is a far more collaborative approach between organizations like the Economic Development Board, the DTI of South Africa, the CEDAs of South Africa, and bring on board other collaborative partners in different parts of Africa to have a structured approach to roll out this Africa Trade Agreement, I think we will be creating a far more effective platform for our entrepreneurs to enter into the African market. One very important point, whenever I engage with embassies in different parts of the world, either the South African embassy based in the country or whether it is global embassies based in South Africa, the common language that comes up is there isn't enough products produced in South Africa on the shelves of our countries. And I think we need to really make a difference in that particular space. And as Narisha was saying, we have some neighbors who are far up east that are basically filling in that gap, and we creating an open market for them to fill in that gap. So thank you very much, Neil.
Thanks, Ronnie. And Girish, how do you see this all evolving? How's Mauritius going to play in this space? Girish?
Thanks, Neil. Thanks, Neil. I concur a lot with what Ronnie stated right now with regards, the way we should look at it. When we are talking about one single African market, and the advantage that the Continental Free Trade Agreement is aiming when it comes to removing tariff regulations or which apply to different countries, in view that there are more exchange, buying and selling, or even in services between these countries. Somewhere we had to start. And when starting today with the ACFTA, it goes in line also to that issue that Vani is saying. African Union put it clear with the industrialization program agenda they have put forward for Africa. So the question having raw materials and to have, more entrepreneur, more enterprises making, the necessary transformation is very relevant, and usage, of expertise from each country is also very relevant. We have in Mauritius a long expertise in the manufacturing of sugar, for example. We develop even low GI sugar, but we have been also going to countries like Mozambique, setting up sugar factory plants, okay? So this sort of collaboration is very important for us to move to a standard that we are talking about one market. Who knows tomorrow we may be having our own currency? Who knows tomorrow that we may be very strong in specific areas of production, since we are already very rich when it comes, even to our agriculture. So there is somewhere things has to start up, and I believe we should keep on removing whatever hurdles that come our way so that we stand stronger as a manufacturing base from that region. Others also did it before us. We have to learn from their lessons. Probably this will, I've seen from a different angle, all our African leaders also speaking that language. So we Mauritius, we look very much at it, and probably this collaboration that we need. We find it very, very hard at times when there are countries in Africa that are neighbors, but need to get their products to each other would imply going to Europe and then come back to the other neighbor. Okay, can you imagine the type of logistics that we're having? So you can't export next door, but you go to Europe and then to Paris and then come back to this. Can you imagine when it regards to French-speaking African countries? Because Mauritius, we are bilingual. We are connected to both the English and French-speaking African countries. When you take the French-speaking African countries, that their way of looking at business still today was mostly towards Europe, towards France. Even the agreements that we were having with AGOA and all, they were not looking at it much. They were not exploiting it. And probably that collective approach of ours now with the ACFTA, even with other agreements that need to be revised, decide, discuss, will be in a better position to negotiate what the best for us, and which each of everyone, making maximum use of what their forte is all about. So this is very important in the way that we look about the future with regards to the type of manufacturing we want to do, the type of services that we can do. We have a lot of experts, we have a lot of experience that have been acquired, but this experience need to be used in the line of Africa now. This experience to be used within the region, and such agreement allow more this exchange of people, which is very important. The exchange of people will imply exchange of ideas, exchange of expertise, of course, transfer of funds that goes on more easily, and obviously credible investment in view to uplift the continent.
Thanks, Gary. We are running quite a bit over, so I'm going to get to the end. I'm going to close. But Vani, just before we get to the closing, do you just want to wrap up from your side any positive engagements that you've had with Mauritius and the impact of the implementation and the changes in the positioning of Mauritius and all the work that Girish and the Mauritius government is doing? Can you share some of those engagements with Mauritius with us?
Absolutely. Thank you for that, Neil. I think, it's important to state that we've had a relationship with the Economic Development Board since 2016. And I first met Girish and Mr. Krishna in South Africa, and when they were on trade mission. And I work with groups of entrepreneurs. So we basically, Mr. Radhakrishna, sorry. So we basically took the entrepreneurs to meet with Mr. Bhagwan Singh and Mr. Radhakrishna and the teams that they basically brought into South Africa. So there were various collaborative relationships that were created, from footwear to clothing to varying industries, chemicals, for example. Some of our chemical manufacturers now have their products in the Mauritian market. And of course, when a few of our entrepreneurs were on a trade mission, you know, they were in a bit of a desperate situation because some network linkages fell through. And all I could do or had to do was pick up the phone to Girish at 11 o'clock at night to say, my entrepreneurs are there, but the appointments have all fell through. Can you please assist? And within a matter of a few hours, the next morning, all the appointments were scheduled and the entrepreneurs basically had places to go to and network links to create, which was absolutely brilliant. So this kind of relationship and collaborative relationship is amazing. I mean, I visited Mauritius twice and always hosted by the EDB and taken to some of the industries. And that is why I could create more of a network, collaborative and trade relationship between the Mauritius and South African entrepreneurs that we work with on a regular basis. It's because I've seen things firsthand. I've also had the opportunity to train some of the EDB staff on entrepreneurship and entrepreneurship concepts, and of course, train some of the entrepreneurs, which kind of also gave them a sense of the type of technology and concepts and entrepreneurial leadership, management, development approaches that we're using in South Africa. So this is a mutually beneficial, collaborative relationship, and you know, very attractive to the South African market because of the location and being a beautiful island where they could have a bit of a holiday. So apart from you know, the clothing and textile industry and various other industries, there's also been lots of interest in developing resorts from South African entrepreneurs in Mauritius. And that has been another point of referral for Girish and his colleagues in Mauritius. We basically have or regularly create online sessions with Girish and his team. And we just had one at the end of last month, you know, where an introduction on the legislative environment to enter into the Mauritian market is basically presented to a group of 30 or 34 entrepreneurs. And they have the direct link and contact with EDB to basically now pursue the relationship. So it has been an amazing relationship since 2016. And we look forward to basically enhancing this and taking it to the next level. I just believe that there's so much of potential. And of course, with the recent unrest, the panic response from entrepreneurs was, we need to leave the country. You know, we need to go to Mauritius. We need to go to, you know, some part of Europe and that kind of thing. So amidst kind of tempering down this panic, you know, we had the Mauritian EDB team basically talk about, you know, completing some part of the manufacturing process in Mauritius and using Mauritius as a platform to enter into Africa and Europe, especially French-speaking Europe. So, you know, there's so much of potential and so much of collaboration, and I think it needs to be exploited far more than it is being at the moment by more role players going forward. Yeah, thank you so much, Neil.
Oh, thank you, Bonnie. And I see we've lost Narisha. She messaged me just to say that load shedding's kicked in. So luckily we got most of the questions answered by her, which is great. Let's wrap up now. So on just Girish, your final thoughts?
Yes, my final thought is with the challenges that the world is facing, with the challenges that's laying focus more on the regional markets, with the new agreement that's coming, two like-minded nations, two rainbow nations can work shoulder to shoulder and exploit the potentials that we are having. So Mauritius is open. Mauritius, extend their warm welcome to South African partners in view to develop this sort of collaborative partnership in a win-win situation way, because we have a lot to conquer together with regards to markets, with regards to opportunities of investment, with regards to grow and prosper business. And also it's very important to know, already in Mauritius, when we know that the digital is taking momentum, there have been also platforms being developed in Mauritius like Abana, which aims to connect, Africans with Mauritians in view to serve clients outside. So there are platforms also being developed like that. But what's more important also from perspective of Mauritius, we love people to always smile. We said, okay, here's a place to mix business and pleasure. And our motto is clear: come, live, work, and play from Mauritius. Thank you.
Girish, thank you so much. Thanks for summing it up so beautifully. But I think just listening to everybody, it's Mauritius is ready to trade. We're in a global village in Africa. Let's exploit it. Let's collaborate. And on that note, I would just like to thank all our panelists today for making this such an engaging session. And sorry that we couldn't get to all the questions that came through, but we will engage with you individually after this webinar, and the webinar will be made available shortly to all attendees. So on that note, thank you so much, Girish, Ronnie. Appreciate your time and enjoy the rest of our afternoon. Take care, everybody.
Thank you very much. Thank you, Neil, for being the perfect host. Thank you, panelists. Thank you, Vani. Thank you, everybody. And obviously, the work starts now after this. Thank you very much.
Thanks, everybody. Take
Thank you
care.
very much.
Bye.
Goodbye.